25th meeting of the St. Bernard Community Improvement Corporation. If we could have a roll call by the secretary, please.
Jonathan Stuchel,
Present.
Tom Rolston,
Present.
Bob Culbertson, Joe Brickler, Peggy Brickway,
Here.
Ray Culbertson,
Here.
Chris Sauer,
Here.
Chris Schildmeyer,
Present.
Jerry Wiedemann, Amy Osmalley.
Okay. All of you have the minutes in front of you for the May 6th special meeting and the April 27th meeting. Is there a motion to accept the minutes as presented, and are there any corrections at this point? Okay.
Second.
And if, I guess we need a motion to dispense with the reading of the minutes.
Make a motion, we dispense with the reading of the minutes.
Second that.
Okay, this evening our treasurer is absent, but he forwarded, we do not have a complete treasurer's report, but currently we do have $533,824 in the checking account. The next meeting, we'll have a more complete presentation for that. This evening, we'd like to introduce our guest. This evening, we have Christy Zerges from Go Vibrant, who is going to be making a presentation regarding the proposed walking trails that we previously discussed.
Hello, and thanks for having me tonight. Let me pull this up real quick. I think we've all seen enough cicadas. So I know that, I think that you all have this presentation already, but I would like to just share very briefly and run through what Go Vibrant is all about, just a very brief history. Is this okay? Everybody here all right?
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. So we are a nonprofit that's been around for, this is our 11th year. Our first year we started creating some walking routes downtown and for employees downtown, and found so many other people who decided that, hey, you know, I'd like that in my neighborhood as well, that we've grown pretty large. But Go Vibrant is a larger initiative that tries to make activity fun, irresistible, so that it doesn't feel like you have to work to be active. So here are just some things that we've done, various events that we pop up. We have popped up in, although that has been like about a year and a half ago. We do have other initiatives in Washington Park and Ziegler Park, free equipment for kids or adults to play with while they're there and just borrow and return. Few images of that. We've, in the past, done themed walks with all of our different participating neighborhoods as well. We hope to return to something like that again in 2022. But these are all just some background information on what we've done. We also are part of the Go Vibrant Scape down on in Smale Park with a foot piano that I think is disassembled right now for repairs, but it's there nevertheless. And we also participated in Bounce this past 2 years ago in a partnership with some of the schools in the area. All right, quick hit on our neighborhood routes. We try to create these routes as a 1, 2, 3 mile route that highlights various parts of a community. However, we found that some of our neighborhoods are much, much bigger than that, or much, much smaller. So we're totally flexible in what we can do, but the biggest thing we want to do is to highlight what you want featured in your neighborhood. So typically we'll go through a business district, we'll go through some historic places if you've got any you'd like to point out, scenic places to visit. And we have both a walking, or like a map that we are trying to get digitized, but at the very least it's on, they would be on our website and available for people to look up. Also paper versions that you could print off. And then we've got directional signage that is critical directional signage that come at points where we want people to know that's, you know, you've got to turn left, right, or whatever. And we tried to keep these minimal and only at critical places. So they're low impact. This one in particular has two different, the routes overlap at a point. And so when we have one that's got 3 different routes on it, it would be just slightly bigger. And one route or a point of interest sign is much smaller. And then we also typically will have a master sign that incorporates the entire neighborhood with all of the routes on them as well. Those are 12 by 24. So when we created these, we worked with the city of Cincinnati exclusively, who gave us the right to do this. And so since that time, we've found many other townships or villages have decided, and other cities in the area like Newport and Norwood have decided to do this on their own. The requirement for working with our organization is that the signs all look and they've got the same look and feel. Okay, so they all look like this with these colors. However, anything you decide to put on the maps themselves is up to you. We do like to have the route on there. Just to fast forward here. This is an example of one of the maps, and I think that you might all have one as well. And I think that's Walnut Hills, or East Walnut Hills. Whoa. Okay, showing up with a whole other thing here. I've also got a second shot of, let's pull this up, Madisonville, which I understand is a neighbor, or has a similar feature for what you're all looking for, and that's a QR code. So that walkers can go through and the code can appear on a sign, or it can appear on the paper maps or whatever. But the point being that walkers can go by, scan the code, it will direct them to either a website or a historic link or some sort of thing like that. So I just wanted to pull that up as an example for you. Our maps will have the full route on them, like I mentioned, the route distances, maybe some descriptions, and any logos, websites, whatever you want, wording, photos that you would like to have appear. So it's very, very open for creativity on your part. Let me pause right here and ask if anybody has any questions. Okay. Let me go back to the original presentation. Okay, so when we started this process, you've all seen the structure of the fee structure or options that you could utilize. A main feature of the upper tier of the walking routes, in both of them actually, all the tiers include us being the liaison between the designer, the neighborhood, and any manufacturing that you would choose to have for your signage. And let me caveat that by saying, if you're not in the city of Cincinnati, you can pick whoever you want to manufacture your signs. And some folks think that's a really good idea because it keeps your businesses local. We do have outside vendors that we use, but you're always welcome to find your own too. Let's see here. So I guess that's about it. Between 5,000 and 7,000 will get signage up to 50 different signs, including the route, full route maps, and the directional, any point of interest that you might want to put in there. That's all included. All of the artwork's included. All of the conversations are included. And also for, the download for the maps if you want to put those on your websites or print them out yourselves, too. And then the lower tier is just a little bit less signage, 35, depending on the size of your community. That may be enough.
So when you reference the 2 different sponsorship levels, I should say, or costs, I should say, structure here, and you also made reference to signage that, if I understood what you said, keeping it to a minimum, is that, so, we have 1 square mile.
Yep, okay, sure.
So I guess, what would your suggestion be for, our route. Because and it's not just, to me, the number of signs. I mean, my thought on this is also for exposure as well.
Okay.
Throughout the area, some connectivity, throughout the greater Cincinnati area, showing that we're becoming part of this. But the thought being is that also, again, the support that comes with, on the Go Vibrant website. So whether that means that if there's a community event going on in St. Bernard, that's something that, we could, have out there. Because again, we're not that far, obviously, we're right next door to North Avondale, so
Right.
I mean, it would be ideal. So I mean, I guess if, putting you on the spot, I guess, what would be the ideal level for us?
Well, that's a good question. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, it can be whatever you want. And when I say you want to keep the signs to a minimum, a lot of neighborhoods have problems with too much signage. They don't want like a sign every single block telling them to keep going straight. We can put more on there if you like, because we do try to keep them low profile. If you have 1 square mile, you might not need as many. You might fall under the lower category and then save yourself a little bit of money there. That doesn't change the fact that we would still promote things that are going on in the area. You could still use our website or Facebook site for that too. Mostly that price differential is the amount of signs and the fabrication cost. So
And-
I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Kind of does. The primary sign that you talked about, like the entrance to a community, so that, did you say that was 12 by 24, or what was the size of it? So do communities have more than one of those? Because again, we have kind of a gateway, but then there's still multiple entrances, but, whether or not it would be an unusual request to ask for 2 or 3 of those. So that way, at the entrance that we have, a couple different directions that would be posted.
Yep. Thanks for keeping me sharp, because I haven't been sharp in like a year presenting in front of people. Yes, absolutely. We do recommend at least 2 of those signs, and you can have a few more, because if you have a full circle route and a main starting point, well, what happens if you live on the farthest away point, or you happen to start up there? We want people to feel like they can pick it up at any point, even though there's a main start-stop point. So, yeah, you sure can do that. Anybody else? It is one time only. Mhm. And also that fee, some neighborhoods have different funds. It can be paid all at once, or we can do a couple different ones, whatever works best for you.
So basically what I'm asking would be, if of our board, us being the sponsoring agency for such a project, and again, with what the CIC's future goals to creating more of a walking community, I think this is ideal, and helping also get, some additional exposure. So, at this point, whether or not, anyone has a strong feeling one way or the other on the actual structure of options that was presented, whether it be, the $5,000 plan or the $3,500 plan, at this point, would anyone feel that it would be appropriate to actually make a motion to go forward with such a sponsorship for the village of St. Bernard? Does
Mr.
anyone have a
President?
thought?
Yeah, Mr. President. I guess my first thought is I would probably just go the full route plan, because I don't want to chintz it or anything. I like to make sure we have enough. And as a suggestion, maybe to have an additional, if it could be possible, a route plan just for down by P&G, not something I might walk on, but maybe if I worked down there, something they could walk on. Because I know our big focus was over here, but, if we go to the $5,000 level, we should have plenty of money to make a route in that area also.
So, can I just push that back to Chrissy here? So, with that being said, it sounds as though there could be a potential, so for our local industry that supports this community very well, whether or not we created a walking route that would be conducive for them, and one on the residential side, is that something that's an unreasonable expectation?
No, not at all. In fact, we have a couple of situations, for example, Carthage and Hartwell, where the two neighborhoods are in partnership with the one project, but there's a connector. So we point out from one to the other, to Hartwell, to Carthage, put it on the map as a connector and how far it might be if you wanted to walk there, but then they are basically their own separate routes. I think tying it into the P&G so the employees can actually utilize it as well is an excellent idea. We have a few neighborhoods that have tried that too.
So this would be a great opportunity for us to reach out to our community partners, so, not just P&G, but the other industry in that general area, and maybe even get a group of individuals that might have some suggestions as to where we can use, because obviously they'd be crossing over onto various properties, but there might be a good plan that could be put together and try to get some buy-in on this. So I think it's a great idea.
Well, if I could find my cursor, which I cannot. Interesting. Oh, well, I'll just tell you about it. On the maps, and you all have copies of the maps, one of the examples I showed you had the QR code on it, but we can also leave some space for co-branding so that if you did have another industry that wanted to help support, but they wanted their own logo on the map so that they could exclusively hand that out to their employees or their customers or whatnot. We can leave room for that, and then our designer can just drop in a few different templates that you can utilize. And if I could just quickly address the timing of what this would look like if it's something you decide you would like to do. Typically what we do is form a committee of one or two people or smaller committee rather than a large one because it goes a little bit quicker. That work with me and you tell me what you would like to showcase, what you would like to feature, basically where you would like the routes to go. And we'll just work together to create that flow as much as it takes. We can revise a time or two on how that best looks. But that can be as fast as you want it to be. And I guess realistically for you all, we could push for like a late fall, mid-fall kind of thing, deadline, depending on how quick you want to go. The maps typically go rather fast if we have all the pieces at once.
One question, do you have any kind of data or anything on how much use you get?
That's a good question. We do have it. I don't have it on me, but I can make sure if you can send me the contact information or I can send it to Jonathan that I can get that to you. One of the ways that we track that is through every year we have a 1,000,000-step neighborhood challenge. And so we count how many neighborhoods have turned in, have recorded a number of steps or a number of miles throughout their use. So, yeah, I can get that for you.
Something I was going to address to Chris. So how hard would it be for us to come up with an app? Is that even remotely possible where people could, track this, or people could post it, the people that are participating? So is there any way that we could, if we were to sponsor this, if indeed we're to do so, people in the community could actually, log on, or, that we would know that people are using it, and whether or not anyone wanted to be able to go out and, I'm not saying just on Facebook, I'm saying, again, this would be just one other option that, again, we could track some kind of use without, obviously, we're not stalking people, but we're just saying, hey, look, people in the community want to say, hey, look, we're using this.
Yeah, it's time and money. Something like that is, depending on, based on the scope you just kind of laid out there, where it's more about just basically interacting and being able to pull it up and say, yes, I did this, track usage, things like that, you're probably, in the $5,000 or less range.
You're a computer programmer, right?
I am.
And
Well, let me quickly explain something that might help that. We are in the middle of our, we just started the Go Vibrant 1,000,000-Step Challenge, which has an app that links to either Fitbit or Apple. And so when a neighborhood is part of that challenge, their users can go in and log in, set up a password, and then all the steps that they take go to that neighborhood if they designate that neighborhood as being. So, yes, unfortunately, that's started. If this is a process you want to jump in on, once we get a commitment, I can see if we can, I will have to confirm that we can get you added so that you can start doing that. Because a neighborhood that's in process counts.
At this point, I mean, I don't know, I don't really see the reason to move it to another meeting to discuss. Is there, you know, I like the idea, again, promoting the walkability of our community that only is going to expand, especially if we're looking at doing this on, you know, for our community partners on the industrial side. I would actually like to, you know, I'd like to make a motion that we move forward with the full route plan, and as the CIC being the sponsoring agency for this community as a nice way to be able to try to give back and invest locally.
I'll second that.
Great. Well, thank you. Apparently I can't turn off my computer. Oh, there we go. Who knows? We're just going to disconnect at this point. Does anybody have any other questions for me?
Maybe in just a minute,
Okay,
depending on
sure.
how this vote goes, and then
Sure.
I'll.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I'm just disconnecting this so you don't have to look at it anymore because it's not working.
Okay, on the motion for the CIC to be the sponsoring agency for a Go Vibrant walking path in St. Bernard, Jonathan Stuchel,
Yes.
Tom Rolfson,
Yes.
Joe Brickler, Peggy Brickweg,
Yes.
Ray Culbertson,
Yes.
Chris Sauer,
Yes.
Chris Schildmeyer,
Yes.
Jerry Wiedemann.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, so back to you, Christie. So then I guess the next steps, are you going to forward us some sort of sponsorship agreement? And then we can work out the next steps and trying to get some people together that could help put together the routes. And then we can also reach out again to, you know, some of our community partners on the industrial side as to get some input from them as well. So even though it might be a multi-step process between the residential and, you know, the other side here, we can make this work.
Great, well,
So-
thank you.
Well, thanks for coming tonight. We really appreciate it. That's great.
Well, I look forward to working with you. I will have a memorandum of understanding drafted up, and I'll have that to you, you know. I know this is a holiday weekend, but early June, and we'll take it from there. Thank you, everybody.
Okay. After we go through a couple of the action items on the agenda, two things that I'd like to ask. One, I would like to table items 4 and 5 on the agenda to discuss in a potential scheduled special meeting potentially for next week. We have some additional information to discuss, so I'd like to table that, and I would also like to ask for a motion to go into executive session for the sale of property.
I'll make a motion to go into executive session for sale of property.
On the motion to go into executive session for the sale of property, Jonathan Stuchel,
Yes.
Tom Rolfson.
Yes.
Aggressive. Joe Brickler, Peggy Brickweg,
Yes.
Ray Culbertson,
Yes.
Chris Sauer,
Yes.
Chris Schildmeyer,
Yes.
Jerry Wiedemann. Thank you.
At this point, my suggestion would be
On the motion to come out of executive session, Jonathan Stuchel,
Yes.
Tom Ralston,
Yes.
Joe Brickler, Peggy Brickwig,
Yes.
Ray Culbertson,
Yeah.
Chris Sauer,
Yes.
Chris Schildmeyer, Jerry Wiedemann.
Tell me when you're ready. Yeah.
Ready.
Okay, back to the action items on the agenda. As far as the discussion of purchase of property, we have a projected closing date of June 9th or 10th for the commercial building that we are purchasing. One of the things that is being required by the lender is that we do need to discuss as far as insurability. So I did print off to you in what was passed out to you, a proposal from our insurance carrier to add this to our policy. And he gave us two different scenarios. One, basically actual cash value versus replacement cost. So we do need to kind of let them know which direction we're going. The explanation of the difference between the actual cash value and replacement cost is on the back. But basically, if we would be covering this building, there would be an additional premium, of course, if we wanted, actual cash value versus replacement costs. So at this point, whether or not anyone on the board itself has an opinion on this, I do need to let the carrier know pretty much ASAP so that we can provide our certificate of coverage for this building that we are purchasing. Well, that's not been determined. That's not been determined at this point.
Well, and we will have obligations under the lease that's going to be signed at closing. I would have to look at the exact dollar figure. The answer might actually be in there versus having a discussion here, but it certainly needs to be higher than the purchase price.
So right now, our current projected actual cash value limit would cost us for the remainder of roughly the year, or into just, remainder of the year, basically would be 1,016, so, but we would need to, at this point, I mean, I'm okay with that. I don't know if we really need the actual cash value or not, but, for replacement side purposes, but.
Jonathan, seems to me like $362 might make more sense to, in case we did not end up getting rid of it, spend a little bit, couple, $300 to get back to it. Probably
Okay.
for the replacement value, my own.
I agree.
All right.
So we're talking replacement cost.
Yep.
And that can always be changed, I mean, at this point.
If we go with the replacement, there's no way the lease would be have any higher requirements.
At this point, we're all set, we're moving forward. As I said, we'll have the set closing date within the first 2 weeks of June, and that transaction should be completed. As far as sale of property, we are under contract for 4913 Andrew. At this point, the potential buyer is under their inspection period, and we don't have a projected closing date as far as of yet for that. But if you don't mind, Meredith, giving just a brief update to the contract for the requirement that was built in as far as for occupancy, owner occupancy.
Sure. So, in the 4913 Andrew, we added a requirement that he either occupy the property for 3 years or he is able to sell the property so long as the person to whom he sells it agrees to occupy the property for that same time period. So, we will ultimately get our owner occupant.
All right, at this point, we're gonna skip, we're tabling items 4 and 5 for a special meeting. At this point, is there, I'd like to go ahead and discuss the scheduling of that since we're on that subject. Does next Thursday work for anyone? All right, so the special meeting Wednesday, June 2nd at 6 PM here in council chambers. Okay, next item, the Long John Silver's old firehouse property. Do we have an update on any of the bids for demo?
Yes, we do. So we have a bid for demo. I reached back out and got a bid in at a total of $28,888 from Fiscus Demolition and Excavation. That includes $26,880 for the actual demolition of the structure and all of the pavement around it. It does not include touching any of the curb cuts, but everything that is basically within the property bounds would be covered by this, with an additional $2,000 allowance in there for the pumping, removal, and disposal of any grease trap on the property. So that is where we are on that. So not terribly far off of when we initially bid this out, but a little bit more than where we started.
Would you mind repeating the name of the project?
Yes, it is, hold on, I'm gonna pull up their exact name, so for the record. Correct. Yes. So the exact name is Fiscus Excavating, Inc.
This is like
Fiscus.
Are we in a point to actually make a motion to accept a bid and move forward and go ahead and sign a contract or not?
Is that the only bid we have?
Or do we have a second?
Yes, that's the only bid that I got back. Which is in line with the lower end of the bids that we got in the first place, so. The other portion of this is that we do have someone in line with the, so we approved up to $5,000 for the ACM survey. The bid actually came back in at $1,150 for that, so we got, you know,
The asbestos survey?
yes.
Which was under what we approved.
So the one thing I would say is, you know, even if we do approve the bid for demolition right now, that asbestos survey is still ongoing. He actually intends to access the property this week or next, and then we're gonna have to get the results back and figure out if there's any remediation necessary. So we could vote on it tonight. I don't know that the actual demolition would occur or begin before the next meeting, though. So it's up to all of you.
To a suggestion?
I make a motion, we enter a contract and tear that thing down.
Yeah.
And one quick question before we ask for a motion to accept that bid. Correct me if I'm wrong in understanding that the company that is doing the asbestos, I guess, study, also, if there is anything found, can actually also do the remediation as well.
Correct. So as a part of their proposal to come in and do the survey, they basically send it off to the lab, and when they get the results back, they will be proposing to us if there is anything that needs to be remediated, what the cost would be for that, and then we could move to accept that at that time. We did approve up to $5,000 for the survey. I don't know if we want to extend that to, you know, if there are any items that need to be removed prior to demolition covering that, so we can move forward, but,
I think the range is too wide.
okay.
I mean, asbestos remediation could be
Yeah.
a couple couple
we don't
thousand
know.
to many thousands, like.
Right.
I would rather wait to see what they recommend.
Okay, yeah.
And
Um,
is there anything that also within the bid proposal for the demolition here, what about the scrap value for anything? Are we, I mean, as of right now, I mean, if we want, for example, like I Am Coffee had made a request for like a door and a drive-through window, whatever. So, I mean, is there anything to say that we couldn't have items from that building if we approve this bid? So, for example, I mean, you've got all that HVAC, a potential walk-in cooler. I mean, there's items that, you know, is that something that's negotiable, or is that something that they would expect to be able to take with them in the demolition?
I mean, it's our property, so if we want to go ahead and get anything out of there that we want to take with us, typically, they're not selling items like, yeah. Yeah. So I think that's really up to us.
Somebody has an accident removing something.
Well, we would be on the property, unless it's a licensed contractor that has their own insurance.
I would say let them take it all.
All right. So would it be appropriate this time to ask for a motion to accept the bid from Fiscus Excavation for the demolition of the Long John Silver's building?
I'll make that.
Second.
And I guess you'll be repeating the actual cost again that was quoted.
Yeah. On the motion to accept the bid from Fiscus Excavation for $28,888 for the demolition of the Long John Silver's building, including the scraping of the parking lot. President Stuchel,
Yes.
Tom Rolson,
Yes.
Joe Brickler, Peggy Brickwig,
Yes.
Ray Culbertson,
Yes.
Chris Sauer,
Yes.
Chris Schildmeyer,
Yes.
Jerry Wiedemann.
Yes.
Motion passes.
As far, is there something else? As far as open discussion, additional agenda items, back to the Long John Silver's building, the fire department actually would like to, before the demolition occurs, and of course, within the scope of that project, they would actually like to be able to do some training in that building itself. It would be ideal, rather common. I don't know if anyone has any objection. No, no, nobody said, no, we're not talking about, no, doesn't have anything to do with fire. No, it doesn't have anything to do with setting the building on fire, so we'll make that quick. Because we wouldn't, yeah, exactly. So if no one has any objection to that, there's, at this point,
What will they be doing?
yeah, I mean, it would be a good option for them to be able to utilize in a short period of time, so. And then, as far as the June meeting, at this point, I am actually, just so you're aware, I am going to be on vacation. I've never missed a CIC meeting before, but I am going to be on vacation, and I didn't know what the pleasure of the board would be for June. But I will not be here on the 22nd, which would be our regularly scheduled meeting. I mean, I don't know if anyone would want, again, I'm not that special that I feel like I have to be here, but,
Well, so since we have the special meeting next week, should we maybe see how much what actually needs to be talked about during the June meeting? And then decide then? I mean, I don't know that there's gonna be any, like, large action items that can't wait.
but you all still could meet without me, but I'm just saying that I'm not going to be here on the 22nd.
The meeting's gonna be a lot more fun, but yeah, no, we can decide a date next time.
And the thought of Tom Ralston running a meeting scares me, but yes, that's,
I thought we were meeting on the last two.
So at this point, we'll be announcing whether or not the June 22nd meeting will be going forward or whether or not it's going to be rescheduled. And just to clarify, there will be a special meeting of the CIC on Wednesday, June 2nd at 6 PM to discuss the sale of property. Is there anything else under open discussion or additional agenda items within the board? Tom?
Nope.
You sure?
You kept everything understood.
Okay, all right, well, good. Anyone else in the board before we open up to the audience? Anyone in the audience have anything under open discussion or additional agenda items? Okay, is there a motion to actually close the meeting here?
Second it?